Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why in how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio. Thank you for joining me again. Today I want to talk about the first 90 days, the 90-day mindset. Now, if you're starting out in sales, the first 90 days are critical. Much like a new president, the first 100 days are important. Much to you as a salesperson, the first 90 days are very important. First quarter, how are you going to do? Now, it's fascinating to me sometimes, looking back at my past career in sales. I've seen salespeople come on board and just really hit the ground running. You know, they're doing well for a month, let's say, and then all of a sudden they fizzle out. Right? They're going well, they're making progress, they're getting the meetings, they're setting up the calls, getting those meetings, doing those presentations, closing a few deals, but then something begins to happen. Something goes off the rails within the first 90 days. And so what I want to do is analyze the mindset, the 90-day mindset when it comes to selling. Because if you're listening to this and you're struggling with sales, maybe, even though you may not be within those 90 days, maybe you're struggling with one of three things that I want to talk about today. Now, why do people get derailed? Why do salespeople get demotivated? Why do they lose their enthusiasm? Why do they lose that energy? Maybe the first one is the rejection. Yes, let's talk about the big R word, the rejection, right? You know, you go out there, you make the pitch, and all of a sudden, customers are pushing back. And at that very moment, once they start pushing back, you begin to doubt your product or service. You begin to doubt your product or service. And then you start seeing the imperfections of your product or service. You start looking at all the negative things wrong with the product or service. Here, let me break this down for you. There is no perfect product. There is no perfect service. Everyone is selling an imperfect product or an imperfect service. Said another way, everyone is selling something that doesn't have everything. But see, that doesn't stop the best salespeople. The best salespeople don't look at what's wrong with their product. They look at what's right with their product, how it can help a client. They learn how to extract the pluses of the product or service. Even if clients push back, again, the best salespeople know how to position the best parts of their product. So maybe what's happening to you psychologically is that you're looking at the pimples, the acne of your product, the ugly part, maybe the stuff that doesn't work as well. But you may be overlooking the best part of your products, the good things that it does for your customer. Again, maybe part of what's going on in your head is that you started to doubt your product or your service. And as soon as you begin to doubt what you're selling, you're not going to sell. Listen to what I just said, because I want that to really sink in. Once you begin doubting your product or your service, what you have to offer to the market, customers will sense it. They can smell it on you. And that's why you're not closing deals. So the first one is you got to find ways to believe in your product. The second thing that may be wrong of why you get off track, why you get derailed within the first 90 days is maybe your management team, your manager or anybody above them, or maybe even your colleagues are trying to make you sell in a way that you're not comfortable selling. Ooh, this is a good one. Sometimes we're told, hey, you need to sell it this way. Hey, you need to present this that way. Hey, you need to approach a customer like this. But inside, you feel this dissonance, this disconnect between what they want you to do and who you are as a salesperson. Now, what I need you to start thinking about is, how do you become, and here's the key word, more authentic? See, it's okay to listen to other people, but at the end of the day, you have to be comfortable selling it your way. Listen to what your managers have to say, but again, it's about you, how you sell, what you're comfortable doing. You can't be somebody else. I want you to think right now of somebody you know who's a great salesperson. Do you have that person in mind? Think of somebody, that personification of a great salesperson. Do you have that person in mind? Well, now that you have that person in mind, realize one thing. You can never be that person. Listen again to what I said. You can never be that person, so stop trying to. Can you learn from that person? Absolutely. Can you incorporate some of the things that that person does into your sales process, how you sell? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you have to be comfortable selling your way. So again, 3 things that derail us. The first one, rejection. Again, customers push back. We start doubting our product. We start seeing the inferiority of our product, but we don't focus on the positives, the upsides of our product. We lose confidence in our product. Second, if you're being told to sell a certain way and it isn't you, it simply isn't you, then you will never be successful because, again, the customers can detect it when you're not being authentic. The third and final one is the fact that maybe during the first 30 days you were too dumb, too stupid to know the reality of the market. I don't mean that in a negative way. Sometimes not knowing is a good thing. But in the first 30 days, you go out there, you thought it was going to be easy, and in the first 30 days, you realize it's not that easy. Well, guess what? The reality is finally setting in. Maybe within those first 30 days, you start realizing this is not going to be that easy. Well, guess what? Welcome to the game of sales. If sales was easy, everybody would be doing it. Everybody would be making a lot of money. It isn't easy to sell. And as soon as you accept that reality, just accept it, incorporate it, and now deal with it, you can move forward. Too often, new salespeople think, this is going to be easy. And when the market doesn't respond, customers don't respond, they're not closing deals, the sales cycles are longer than they thought, they need to make more calls to close, they need to set up more meetings to close, they need to learn the product better to close, it finally starts dawning on them, you know what, maybe this is going to take a little longer, and that's okay. In other words, the learning curve is not going to be that short. It's going to be longer, but again, part of the process is seeing reality for what it is. Now, let's go through the 3. First one is rejection, when you stop believing in your product because you've been rejected so much. That will hurt you. 2, if you're not authentic, selling the way you sell, do it the way you do, you will never be effective at selling. But lastly, you have to have a realistic alignment with what's happening in the market, how fast you can sell. Now, when you're dealing with rejection, maybe, let's start with that one. You're doubting your product because you don't see the value or you don't understand the value. Oh, that's important. Maybe you don't understand the value of what you're offering. You need to find ways to differentiate your product. You need to find ways to quantify the value. I've talked about this in my podcast in the past. If you have a product, figure out how you can help people increase revenue, reduce costs, or expand market share. Again, let me repeat those. How does your product help them increase revenue, reduce costs, or expand market share? Or if you're selling a B2C product, how does it help them financially? How does it help them physically? How does it help them psychologically? How does your product or service help them? You need to figure that out if you want to reduce the rate of rejection. But once you understand the value of how I can increase revenue, reduce costs, expand market share, or help them financially, physically, or psychologically, now you start believing in your product and you'll sell more effectively. In terms of authenticity, sell the way you're most comfortable selling. Learn to listen to other people, but in the end, it has to be natural for you. Use your words. Sequence things the way you want to sequence them. In other words, show this first, show that first, in what feels comfortable for you. Find ways of closing the deal that feels comfortable for you. Bruce Lee, my favorite quote, said, "Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely yours." Let me repeat that. He said, absorb what is useful, discard, get rid of what is not, and then add what is uniquely yours. That's your style of selling. Last but not least, commit to the fact that it's not going to be easy to close some deals. Maybe the sales cycle is longer. Maybe it's going to take you a little longer. That's okay. Just reframe your thinking. Accept the fact that it's not going to be easy. Count on the fact that you're going to have to learn more, be more aggressive, take more responsibility for learning your product. Think of Kaizen. Remember that Japanese phrase? Continuous improvement through iteration. Continuous improvement through iteration. In other words, every time you go out there and do a presentation, you get better. Every time you do a pitch, you get better. This is part of what it takes to be successful in selling. So again, if you can provide value, you can be authentic, and commit to sticking in there, really making it happen, no matter what reality deals you, you will be successful at selling. This is Victor Antonio. That's it for this Sales Influence podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave me some feedback on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. Let me know what you think. I always appreciate it. Also, check out my website series, Seminars on Selling, where you can find great training videos for you and your team to grow your numbers. Also, if you haven't registered for my salesmasteryintensive.com workshop, you are missing out on what I think is one of the best workshops you're ever going to go to. Lastly, I want to thank you for listening. This is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care.
Every manager can feel it. The difference between a motivated, value-driven sales team and one that's stuck in a rut. CEOs know the difference too. They can see it clearly in the profit and loss columns. The question is, how do you get your team to this elite level? Is there something extra you can do to break through the remaining resistance and equip them with the right mindset to grow your business? Yes, there is. But you're not going to do it with one of those cheesy inspirational speakers or some self-proclaimed guru. What you need is someone with a real business track record to deliver key insights in a captivating way, to give your team the right tools for selling in today's tough marketplace. Enter Victor Antonio, experienced executive, innovative thinker, compelling speaker. He's ready to deliver the message you need your people to hear, not with a canned speech, but a customized, dynamic keynote designed to deliver results. Bring Victor Antonio to your next event before the competition does.